Inspired by recent Black History Month events, it'll be the first conversation with 3 distinguished leaders who are making waves in arts and culture on Staten Island. You'll be hearing from Shaw-nae Dixon, food author and owner of Shaw-nae's House, Laurie Cumbo, the Commissioner in Cultural Affairs for the City of New York, and David McGoy, the new interim Executive Director of Sandy Ground Historical Society. This is Conversations with Community Giants.
Hey everybody, Shaw-nae Dixon for the Staten Island Advance here at the Staten Island Advance conference room for an amazing moment we're going to have here. So many people are joined here. Can you pan and show everybody, Jason? There's so many people in this room right now. It's going to be a beautiful time. I'm going to throw it to Graceland first, who's going to introduce everything we're doing here today. Graceland, here you go.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Shane. Hello, everybody. My name is Graceland Santos. I am the chairman of the DEI committee for the Staten Island Advance and SI Live. At this point, we are so honored and pleased to have the CEO, Advance Local, and our publisher of the Staten Island Advance. Please say a few words, Caroline Harrison.
Graceland, thank you so much. And I really thank you and the members of our diversity committee who spearheaded this fantastic event today. So as you know, we have a mission at Advance Local and at the Staten Island Advance SI Live. Our mission is this: to strengthen and empower the communities that we serve. That's all parts of our communities, all voices in our communities. And today is a great example of just that. Hearing from the eminent leaders we're going to hear from today who are representing such important voices in our Staten Island community. So I'm delighted to be here and to welcome everybody. I don't want to take away from the precious time, but I'm going to turn it back to you, Graceland. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. I would also like to welcome our executive editor of Staten Island Advance SI Live, Brian Leyline, who's here with us tonight, and Gail Lubin, who is our senior content director, and also all the wonderful newsroom staff who are here today. This panel is called Conversations with Community Giants, and this is the inaugural effort of the DEI committee, comprised of myself and Shane, Kelly DeSantis, we have Alicia Torres, and of course, Jason Paderon. And we are so happy that you're all here today because, like Caroline said, our DEI committee hopes that this discussion will inspire ways to best represent the communities that we serve. And we want to foster relationships where everyone feels comfortable and included. And we want to promote awareness of different perspectives and exchange ideas on ways to identify challenges of the underrepresented groups on Staten Island. And together we can identify opportunities for improvement. And to that end, we have 3 wonderful panelists with us today. We'll go from left to right. The first gentleman is David McGoy. He is the interim executive director of Sandy Ground Historical Society. Welcome. Our second panelist to his left, your right, is Shaw-nae Dixon, the wonderful proprietor of Shaw-nae's House, the acclaimed soul food restaurant on Staten Island. It's located in Stapleton, and if you're a fan of cornbread and all the delicious foods that she makes, that's the stop for you this weekend, if you can get a reservation. And then last but not least, we have Bliss Green Moorhead, who's a representative of Commissioner Cumbo's, Laurie Cumbo, who is our commissioner of the Department of Cultural Affairs for New York City. So without further ado, I'm going to send it over now to Shane, our personality, very well-known for SI Live and Staten Island Advance. Shane, take it away.
Thank you, Grayson. I'm funny, too. You could have said I'm funny, too. First off, I want to say, I'm going to put this here real quick. Just a round of applause for them being here today, everybody. Like Graceland said, let's just get right into it, not waste your time. Thank you so much for being here. One of the first questions that we had written up for you is very simple and something that we hope you can speak to. What does Black History Month mean for you personally, and why is it so important? David, we'll start with you. If you could grab that microphone right there, would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. Glad to be here. And I have to say, when I first saw Community Giants, I was just kind of thinking, like, if anyone could see me play golf, they probably wouldn't consider me a community giant. So anyway, but I'm glad to be here. When I think about Black history and I think about how I grew up, I went to PS 18 right in West Brighton, and the history that we learned was basically not inclusive of people like us. I think we learned history from the standpoint of slavery to Crispus Attucks to Frederick Douglass, but we didn't really get like a full complement of the experiences that Black people had in this country, particularly free Blacks, right? Like the ones that we talk about at Sandy Ground. And I have to say, I'm sitting next to a Sandy Ground expert here, a lived experience expert. So I don't want to like steal the thunder, but just the idea that there were landowners and free Blacks people during the early 1800s was something I never learned about in school. And I think I and other young people, like things like that can affect our self-esteem when we don't see positive images of ourselves in school and in the community. It affects our confidence. It affects how we interact. And I think it's really important that we learn. I didn't start learning Black history till I was 19 years old and out of high school. And a lot of that was self-initiated because I felt this void in my own experience. I didn't see myself in the history books. And so I think it's very important for Blacks in the community to take the initiative to learn that. But I think that's incumbent upon all of us to learn each other's history. I'll just stop there and pass it to you.
Shaw-nae, please.
So what I'll say to that point about Sandy Ground is I am an 8th generation direct descendant to the first free Black to purchase property on Staten Island. And that is something that I have learned to allow to roll off of my tongue every single time that I speak to someone, because it has become the forefront of my business, my purpose, and my intentions are to not only walk in the authority of knowing what that means to United States history, because it's not just about Staten Island. It's not just about New York. We are also the oldest community inhabited by its original descendants in the U.S. And so for us to have that be said, it's powerful to then be able to piggyback off of that and say Sandy Ground is also a documented stop on the Underground Railroad, that Harriet Tubman did visit this space and also deliver the enslaved to my ancestor, Captain John Jackson, that ship that he used to utilize as not only a part of his business was also used as transportation to bring in those people and give them safe passage into a space that would be the safe haven for them so they could become a part of a community that was free, that was intelligent, that was working, that was thriving and prosperous. And in union together, they were working together. They weren't shutting anyone out. They were bringing people in so they understood what community was like. And so for it to be not just Black history, it's my history. You know what I'm saying? So when I'm walking around, I know that I am also walking in a legacy and I am making history every single day that I attach that past to my present and know that I am also then pouring into my future, which is I have 6 children. I have 1 grandchild. And as I teach my 9th generation and 10th generation that you are also important to United States culture, history, Black history, and the growth of what the United States sees, little tiny 13.5 miles Staten Island as this giant in a conversation. I want my children to understand how important they are to that. You know what I mean? I want them to know that they take part in that. So for me, I don't think that it's just about Black history. I think that it's about United States history. It's history. And so when we pour into that and we understand what that means for every single person that lives on Staten Island, every single person that frequents it or visits it, they will then know that you are stepping on sacred ground that has brought a lot to the table in terms of history in itself. And so that speaks a lot for me, and it speaks a lot for my family. And I think that I also would be able to say it speaks on behalf of every single person that's in this room and a part of those conversations.
That's awesome, Shaw-nae. Thank you for that. I think when we last spoke during our interview, when we went down to your spot, which I need a reservation, by the way, Shaw-nae's house. Packed. You can't get in the place. We last spoke, and you said this place is welcome to everyone, all cultures, Staten Island as a whole, and we hope to be doing the efforts we're doing here today and continue that with the Diversity Committee. What do you think Staten Island as a whole can do to better promote diversity, inclusion, and all types of cultures going forward?
I think that Staten Island can recognize what it is that we need, and we can speak for ourselves and for everyone. You know what I mean? We can't ignore the fact that things need to be addressed. We have to say what those things are, and then we can't be afraid to address them. If you're going to say, like particularly for me, my restaurant is in Stapleton Heights, and it's separated from Stapleton. And when I get my customers come from all over the world. Last week it was Tanzania, Africa, Guam, like people were coming from everywhere traveling into the restaurant. All over the United States, people are crossing the bridge. They're coming into that restaurant because they're coming there for that particular experience. But what they also come for is the story. They see the story behind the restaurant. They know that there's something else that is there that is so powerful. But one of the barriers that I have to be up against or try to break is the command posts on Broad Street. You know what I mean? I have to get people to pass by that huge police presence and try to explain to people that it's still a safe space. And how do I do that when those things are there and they're so clear and evident and everyone can see that? We have to address it. We have to say that's a problem. You know what I'm saying? That's an issue that we have to be able to get on so that we can create peace and unity and bring people in and let them feel like they are a part of that situation. But if you leave those troubles there and you say, that's just for you guys to deal with and we don't really want to have anything to do with it, then it hurts businesses like mine. It hurts communities that I'm in because you're in fear of addressing those issues. That doesn't speak to diversity. It doesn't speak to equality. It doesn't speak to inclusiveness. It speaks to separation. It speaks to fear. It speaks to, ignoring, abandoning that issue and neglecting it when it needs to be addressed. We can't be afraid to address it. We have to address the issues when we see them, when they're clear and present and they're in our face. We have to say, that's an issue we have to talk about. And we can't be afraid to bring that to the attention of our policymakers, our community members, our taxpayers, our leaders, whoever it might be. We need to involve them, and then we need to hold them accountable.
Same to you, David.
I think it feels like DEI is getting a bad reputation, a bad name, and I think that's something that we need to kind of unpack because when we think about DEI, it's become kind of this a trend, a project, a thing that we do that starts and ends, right? When really, the way I think about DEI, it's a way of life. It's a way of expressing what it means to be a good human, really, and things like empathy and emotional intelligence being real drivers and factors in promoting a welcoming environment for anybody. My wife gave me this analogy, and I think it really works when you think about yourself planning a party, right? Now, you can plan a party with people who look like yourself, and that's it, just people who you know. Or you can say, well, wait a second, we need to make this more diverse. We need more people in the room, right? So then we get diversity, but it can't stop there, right? Because we need inclusion, right? We don't just want them at the party standing against the wall. We want to encourage them to try new food, try different, just to use it to share experiences, right? And benefit from the qualities of each other's experience, I think, is really a more inclusive way. Again, like a party, who's at the party, who's planning the party, who's feeding and drinking at the party. I think those are all like the questions that we need to ask in any situation that we're in, right? And I think professionally, I work in the nonprofit space, and it's started off doing a lot of work in fundraising and governance, but it's very difficult to do that work without talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Because that's really how we're going to create a culture in organizations that are trying to address social justice. We have to meet them where they are, really. So I have more to say, but I'll pause there for another question.
Sure. I think the meetings that we're having, just like right now and things going forward, the end goal is equal treatment for everyone. So hot button issues, terms, systemic racism, stuff like that can throw people off and not really make it easy to have a conversation sometimes, even though it needs to be had. So Dave, how do you think people should go about having conversations about things like that? And what programs do you think are important to make sure there is equality going forward?
Wow. It's really, really difficult to have the dialogue. And I think here is where I have to pause and say, like, to me, a lot of this it's a personal journey. It's about me looking in the mirror, understanding my blind spots, understanding my own biases and working through those things, right? That's really where it starts. And beyond that, it's what is my sphere of influence? Like, where can I make a difference? I can't change racism, right? But I can change it on my staff and in the organizations that I work with and the training that I do with other nonprofits. So there are ways. I think it's about understanding that we ourselves have to change and then bringing that change into the environments that we're in.
Amazing, man. Thank you. Shaw-nae?
I looked at the questions and then I started getting uncomfortable. I think being uncomfortable is important because it will then provoke me or promote me to say, these are conversations we need to be having. And you can create these conversations anywhere. We have these conversations all the time in the restaurant, and that's with anybody. Anyone that is there having dinner that wants to ask the questions about whatever it is that they're going through when we in that, especially in that community, like these conversations come up often because people are constantly passing by. Young people are there. They're uncomfortable. There's nowhere to park. Where do you know what I'm saying? So the questions of like racism or social injustice or prejudice or any separate segregation, I think that when we actually take responsibility for where we stand in those particular situations, we're better served when we just know we can have that conversation anywhere. You know what I mean? You're not doing it to be offensive. You're not doing it to harm anybody. You're doing it because you want to grow from it. You want to get past it. You want to deal with it. And so, like, I sat down, I watched our councilwoman, Camilla Hanks, have a conversation with people in the restaurant when they had a meeting. And, there was these people sitting in the room and I'm saying, how do we get that situation to spread? How do I get people to have more of that conversation, even if it's in my tiny 6-table restaurant? You know what I mean? If I invite 20 people from all over to come in and have a conversation about how you feel we can better impact people to have those discussions about social injustice or, any kind of identified issues of racism, whether it be in schools. We're dealing with parents. We're dealing with grandparents that are raising their children. We're dealing with, community members, store owners. We're dealing with all these different types of people all the time that are coming into these spaces. These are the spaces you need to have the conversations at, because those are the spaces where they're, you're a little less, you might be vulnerable, but you're a little less guarded. You know what I mean? Like, food makes people comfortable, right? So, you might eat a piece of sugar daddy wing, chicken wing at the restaurant if you can get in. And when you get in, you want to sit down and you want to have that conversation with people. The unique thing about Shaw-nae's house is it only has 6 tables and the tables are close together. And the person that you're sitting next to may be from the South Shore and the other person may be from Brooklyn. And that person may want to have a conversation about social injustice because the WB Mason truck crashed in front of my restaurant and all the people's cars were crushed. And so now it's like, who was on the truck and who drove and what happened to the officer and why did this happen? And so they start talking about all of these different things. And now it's a matter of saying, well, how did you feel about, that person driving off and the person getting hit and that person, one person didn't get their car replaced, but the other person did. Why? Because the other person had a stronger advocate than the other person. So what did I do? I stepped in the conversation and said, do I need to call Camilla? Can I call somebody and ask, is there something that I can do for you to make sure that your car gets replaced too? Because why? Because then the issue of race came up, was like the white woman who was 83 whose car got hit, she got a new car fast. The young girl who was 23 years old whose car got hit, she didn't get her car right away. You know what I'm saying? The impound situation was different. So when we're having those what seem to be light conversations about what they may have felt, may have been prejudiced or racist or whatever, became a very heavy conversation, because now it was, who's advocating for me? And it could be the store owner. It could be your neighbor. It could be the person from Brooklyn who felt like they're a little bit more open. They're a little bit more culturally aware. So why is Staten Island so small-minded and not taking care of their business? Because those are the conversations that they have when they come in. When New Jersey comes in, when Brooklyn comes in, when the Bronx comes in, when Harlem comes in, they say, yeah, we just never thought we'd come to Staten Island because you guys are real heavy on the lighter side of life. And then I give them the story about, well, no, kind of, I'm the first. I made it possible for Pete Davidson and the mob and everybody else to be here. So, take it from me. I'm making it very real, because it's a heavy situation, but I'm making it lighter for you. You know what I mean? Like, it needs to be made a little bit lighter for you, because you may not be able to swallow that entire heavy, prickly egg, but I'm going to make it taste delicious. You know what I'm saying? And that just comes from me having a little bit more cultural awareness or sensitivity, because my menu reflects that. My menu reflects cultural awareness, cultural sensitivity, well-roundedness. My environment says we're all family. We all love each other. We're all here together. We're eating together. We're breaking bread together. So I think that when we take small moments and utilize the small moments in whatever forum or situation we're in, we can have the bigger conversations. Just make them a little bit easier for people to understand and not take so offensively. I don't think that we should be so offended all the time.
A perfect segue to our next question. And by the way, the over and under was 1.5 that you'd mentioned the sugar daddy wig. So I got a bet going right now because those are fantastic. Perfect segue into the next question, though. You're the representative for that, essentially, right? Especially here on this video, the local business owner and what they could do in-house to promote all the equality that we want. What specifically, Shaw-nae, can business owners do to welcome Black residents, to welcome minority groups, to show that they care, or just to at least keep an open platform for even just business to come through the door like that?
I mean, well, we could just be authentic. We could be compassionate. We could be loving. We can be intentional about what our service is to the public. And when you make people feel like they're at home or they're comfortable, or they're welcome, then those other opportunities can then present themselves. So that space doesn't necessarily only have to be a restaurant. It can also be a town hall space. You know what I'm saying? And you can offer that to your community members. I do it all the time. New York Life, whoever it might be that comes in, an insurance company, whoever. Hey, you want to do a workshop in the restaurant and offer your services to the community, because I don't know if they know about life insurance. You know what I'm saying? And that's the lighter conversation I need to have, because they're outside killing each other. You know what I'm saying? And you may not want to have that conversation, but New York Life comes in here and eats every week. You know what I'm saying? Like, health insurance companies or everybody comes into the restaurant. I offer this space. I'm paying the rent. Then you know what? Use it. I'm only open 3 days a week, but we can utilize this space for other things and become more creative about how we're addressing the community and still doing business. We can still do business and still help the community. I believe every business owner has the responsibility and takes on a lot of the responsibility of being a leader in the community. We're not only employing community members, we're also there to be leadership to the community. So we need to make sure that we use our spaces, places, and platforms creatively to invite people in, make them comfortable, and then also make them aware of what's surrounding them.
Same for you, Dave.
This is, I'm not a small business owner. So I think about this from the standpoint of being a small business consumer. And to me, when I walk into a store in Staten Island, I want to feel welcomed. I want to feel appreciated for more than my dollars. And I think it comes down to customer service and how you just treat people, right? That we're all a part of the community. The same folks who run in the grocery store, their kids might go to school. My kids, they might play sports together. We're all intermingled here. And I think when we see a customer walking into a store, we should also see them as a neighbor. And just kind of like breaking down that facade of stereotypes and archetypes and things that can say like, oh, if he has his cap on backwards, or if he has a hoodie on, or or whatever, that he's a certain type of a person, right? And that person is not worthy of a certain level of respect. And I think the worst thing to do is spend money and feel not appreciated. So I would say if you're in the business of customer relations, is to try to make sure that customers that they know and feel that you value them as humans and as neighbors, and not just as a way of making profit.
Awesome. And we're about halfway through, so I just want to address everyone on the Facebook Live. If you're just tuning in right now, Shane DeMeo for the Staten Island Advance. We are here in this conference room, an amazing meeting, conversation with community giants. We have some great insight coming across, and Mark Stein reminded me earlier to say, make sure you subscribe to SILive.com and the Staten Island Advance. You can get all of our full stories, and everything that we're talking about today will be covered by someone on staff. You can be sure of that. Going forward, David, we spoke about some of those strategies that businesses can do going forward. When it comes to resources, say a business owner is watching right now. That sounds great, what everyone's saying. I love what they're saying right now. How do I get in touch with that community? How do I get involved with the community? What resources can I tap into to make sure my business is being aware of everything going on?
That's a tough question. I think, from a business standpoint, I think, it's your outreach and marketing strategies, the things that get you in front of people. And who do you want to be in front of? Right? Years ago, I did I was a part of a focus group for, it was a beer product, and they were looking to do more marketing in the Black community. So focus group was folks like me, Black men who drank beer, right? One interesting thing that came out of the dialogue was that one of the popular beers that we all chose and knew about wasn't even advertising, right? Like in our communities, they weren't targeting us, but we were still supporting those businesses, right? So I think it's, if you really want to have a really rich and diverse customer base, then you have to reach out and interact with all of the different parts of that base.
Thank you so much. Shaw-nae?
Hey, Laurie, I love
We'll get the introduction. We'll get
No.
you're welcome.
I'm making sure I speak to my sister. How are you? Okay. Repeat the question for me, please.
Sure.
You just threw me off.
That's not a problem. Specifically, if someone's watching right now that is a business owner, what specific steps can they take to say, I love everything they're saying. Now I want to get in touch with a community that maybe I don't have outreach to?
All right. So starting out in my business, I'm gonna go back. When I first started my business in my home, right? And I was selling hood plates like mixtapes is what I used to tell people, because I was like underground. And nobody in my community that was outside of being Black knew that the business existed. If you were Black, you knew I existed. You ate my chicken, you ate my food, you knew my grill was popping, you knew everything was going on. My restaurant was actually in my house. That's how Shaw-nae's house started. So people dined in my living room, my dining room, my kitchen, and my backyard. I did it for 3 years. And the reason why I did it like that for 3 years is because resources didn't exist to me. There was nobody that would come up to me and say, wow, your food is really good. Did you know that I will not name all of the acronymed programs that are out there that provide the business resources, but they never showed up. They never came looking for me. They never offered me any assistance. They never gave me any help. They never said anything. Not until I put my foot in my mouth and decided that I was going to pay rent and have a brick and mortar did those organizations now approach me. And I said, oh, well, the secret society done erupted. Y'all done came out, and now you guys want to support my business when I did it for 3 years and didn't get any help from you. And I asked them why. And they said, because you showed up. You came out into the open and you took the risk in paying rent. And I said, well, here's the problem with that. Home-based businesses are real. They exist. And those people that get those EIN numbers and they register their businesses with the county clerk's office and become a real live, either I used to call them click businesses, and they get online and they mail out T-shirts or goods or whatever it is that they might have, they pay a real tax. Okay? A real tax is paid. And those IRS is not cutting them any slack. So if the IRS ain't cutting them any slack, why do you not approach them and provide those same services? Me, I feel like those people, like you said, for marketing purposes, you need to be out there marketing to every business. If this is about DEI and it's about involving everyone, you need to be out there marketing to every business, not just the brick and mortar. You need to invite yourself or insert yourself in the lives of those business owners that have yet to find the right resources to open up businesses that stand still on a street. They may not have it. I love the idea of businesses that come together, like in Empire Outlets or whatever, and in the mall where all the businesses share in that one little room and they all do these pop-ups. I think it's super cool for them because they get the visibility. What my restaurant does is I hold multiple vendors' products in my restaurant. I don't charge any of those business owners for putting their products in the restaurant because I need them to be visible. I need someone to come in and ask for their business card. I need somebody to buy their products out of my store. And then I need to empower them to say, get yourself into whatever these different business resource programs and find out how they can support you and help you build your business. SBS, SIEDC, whoever, SBDC, whoever it might be. I give them the information. Contact this person and tell them that I sent you so that you can help build your business plan. You can help figure out how to find funding so you can get the resources to do a checklist so that you can open up your business the right way, because I haphazardly opened my business in my home all backwards, had a whole hot mess, and then I decided, boom, I'm going to do the brick and mortar. And if we didn't have to work backwards because we didn't have the resources in the front of us, then we'd be in a better position. So if they advertise that better, then I believe more people would come out of their homes and they would want to invest in opening their business and bringing it out to the forefront.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add one more thing to this. I think it's a kind of a concrete scenario. One of the things that I've been involved with your dad, with Coach McCombs, is youth sports, right? And, when we think about that as a place where businesses can really outreach and connect, I think that's a really great place. We all love sports in Staten Island. We love our sports community here. And when we go to, West Shore Little League and Snook Harbor, and we see a lot, Staten Island boys right up the road, we see a lot of support from the small business community. They're branding, they're getting signage, and they're supporting the uniforms and the cost and expense, right? And then I, as a co-founder and others, have trouble doing that. Have a lot of trouble doing that. I've gone to the bar where my buddy and I planned our program, right? We planned our entire program. We started a nonprofit. We would meet there regularly, beers and food and everything, and then we went to the owner to see if we can get some support for our program, and they graciously declined. And I think that's an example of an opportunity, right? That it doesn't have to be a lot, but it does make a difference to these communities, these small organizations, these grassroots coaches who are trying to bring young people together and support them in staying on the right track. And I think it's good citizenship for businesses as well.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. If there's one thing everyone in this room could attest to, I'm a little late once in a while. I'm a little late once in a while. I'm not talking about anyone else in this room. No, that's okay. I'm just joking around. That's what I can relate, because I understand what you need to be a warm welcome when someone comes into the room. I want to give a warm announcement. Let's get a big round of applause. Commissioner for the Department of Cultural Affairs, Laurie Cumbo. I had to. I had to do it. I had to do it.
Well, I want to thank all of you for holding space for me as I arrived. Parent-teacher conferences and balancing commissionership is quite a role. Motherhood and the work-life balance. You're eager to get to your meeting and your teacher saying, "Oh, do you not have more time to hear about your son's progress in school?" "No, I have time. Talk away." "Would you like to hear the other assessment?" "Yes, I want to hear the other assessment too." Thank you. Thank you all for inviting me. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's wonderful to continue the celebration of Black History Month a month after Black History Month is ended. Let's just make it a year-long thing. And I'm really excited. So you have questions that you are asking, and I'd love to take a crack at one of your amazing questions.
Thank you so much. We'll kick it off with you. And also in a few minutes, we're going to open it up to the floor. If anyone else has questions, please try to prep those, and we'll read them over here on the microphone so we could get all the questions we want here. Perfect for you. Here we go.
Right.
We can start. Government and local officials. What can lawmakers do to try to help and promote Black voices, minority voices in the community?
Government has such a critical role to play in the advancement of Black-owned businesses in our community, but also our cultural institutions as well always have to be a huge supporter for the not-for-profit community. We have a role in terms of we are able to support our local bids, encouraging areas that don't have business improvement districts. Those are extremely helpful, and city council members as well as state and elected government officials have the ability to create bids that would allow for areas and spaces throughout Staten Island to have that level of support, to have those assessments that those businesses would pay into in order to make the thoroughfares and the areas far more attractive. Government also has the ability and the power to bring awareness and to unlock many of the agencies and the toolkits that many of our agencies have. I was happy to work with Shaw-nae and seeing that she had this incredible vision for Staten Island, but saying like, you need to meet Commissioner Kim at SBS, Small Business Services, and understand what are the key programs, what are the opportunities for loans, what are the opportunities for tourism and promotion. Every business really needs that toolkit in terms of, and I've seen firsthand how so much of that takes place. The connection, let's say using Shaw-nae's house as an example, Small Business Services gets involved, then NYC and Company gets involved, and then they're able to showcase that local business to the global community, and that spurs tourism, and that spurs the economy on so many different levels. On the not-for-profit sector, I was very proud to hear about the borough president's vision for making Sandy Ground like such a critical landmark institution in Staten Island. And when we support our not-for-profit cultural institutions, that's really my goal. Not-for-profit cultural institutions spur the business economy on so many levels. If we're able to create anchor tenant organizations such as Sandy Ground and others, they are what spurs the economy for the local businesses. Cultural institutions put people in hotel beds, they put people in taxis, they bring people to restaurants, and so that economy is so critical. That's why in each of the 5 boroughs, Mayor Eric Adams has wanted to make sure that we don't see New York City as Manhattan and the outer boroughs, that we really see each other as one city, and those cultural institutions have the ability on so many levels to support the local businesses, because someone goes to Sandy Ground, they're going to have an opportunity to then take their family to a dinner, take their family out for lunch, shop in the local retail stores, and spur the economy in that way. So it happens on so many levels, but what I would like to see more of is we have to bring more of the city council side along with the administrative side so that the commissioners and the city council are working collaboratively and not in silos in order to make sure that you can have an almost complete wraparound service around specific businesses as well as business corridors.
Laurie, you can hang on to the mic because this is one of our last prepared questions. So we'll start it off with you, and then we'll open it up to the floor for anyone else that has questions. Lastly, obviously we're a community paper, and this is a community event we're holding and hosting here. What can us, the media, newspaper, online, publications, what can we do to fairly represent minority groups? What can we do to better engage? What can we do to better showcase some of the things we're talking about here today?
I love that question. You just made that up right off the cuff, right?
Ignored the whole list we had.
You know, from being on so many different sides of this coin, from being a council member to founding a cultural institution, now commissioner, I find that so much of the coverage of the Black community goes unnoticed and undocumented. So our communities are often like overwhelmed with negative news. And so that negative news creates a perception for people that live outside that community, but it also creates a perception of the people that live in that community. So you begin to see your community as unsafe. You begin to see your community as violent. Because all of these stories, as they say in media, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So those sorts of stories, continuously repetitive, start to create a reality that everyone starts to just accept as their reality. It would be so phenomenal to see more stories that really highlight good news, innovative news, things that that people, may not, how our students are doing in the educational system. What are students going on to do? But even more so than that, as my mother used to always say when she would talk about how the news has changed, news used to be very informative in terms of useful information. When the tests are coming out to become part of this union, when opportunities are coming up for different schools and after-school programs, how people would engage more with the news if they saw, I feel that it would take opportunities to their phones now, I guess. How can you want to subscribe to this newspaper because it's going to provide information that's going to help your child, that's going to help your workplace, that's going to help your career advancement. What are the initiatives that the elected officials are doing that's on the ground? So like, let's just say, for example, we have a grant application cycle that's coming out. So does the New York State Council on the Arts. All these different folks and agencies have different guidelines, small business services. How can we get that kind of information out into the community so that people are eagerly looking to find out how can the opportunities assist me? So I would say, doing those highlight stories, the people, the small business owners in the community. How can we celebrate the cultural institutions in the community? Because right here in Staten Island, so many cultural institutions are doing great work. As you know, at the Staten Island Museum, I just left on the weekend. We went to see the Black Angels exhibit, and we had a wonderful luncheon sponsored by Shaw-nae's house. And then the evening after that, we went to see Patti LaBelle, and we saw that at the St. George Theater. Like, there's so many things. Historic Richmond Town did an incredible Lenape celebration that I wish more people knew about. And the Children's Museum at Staten Island does these Jollof rice competitions. Like, there are all these great programs and things happening, but it's like we need those stories to get out there on the island, but even off the island as well. Because, part of, now that I've moved here and I've been a resident now for 2 years, the joke when I was telling people that I was moving here was, hey, I'm moving to Staten Island. They're like, you're going to move to Staten Island? There's no Black people out there. I'm like, there is a thriving Black community out there. Like, and then people will quote the year that they've come to Staten Island. They'll say, like, I went to Staten Island like 1984. There was this thing. And it's like, what's going on here? Like, it's so a lot of those stories need to be told. And that's particularly why I'm excited about Sandy Ground, because I feel like Sandy Ground is going to anchor the borough in terms of its identity and this powerful story of resilience of African Americans thriving, fighting for their safety, but also a story of resilience and triumph. So I think that story is going to really put Staten Island on the map in such an incredible way as far as African American history, and then it's going to usher all of the progress that has been made on the island from those really courageous, innovative individuals that really made this home.
Laurie, thank you so much. Shaw-nae, I know you're going to tell us how it is. What can we do better? Let us know.
I'm always in the paper, so I don't really think you do. Exactly. It works for me. Great marketing. I need to say that because I do want to make sure that I share my gratitude with the way that you have put me at the forefront, to be able to sit here is because my stories are showing up in the paper. And by you recognizing that, it speaks volumes, not just to me and my business, but to, I believe, the Black community. People come up to me all of the time saying, I'm so happy to see so much press following you. You know what I'm saying? Taking your story seriously. And I believe that is encouraging them, is because they're seeing that showing up, not just in the paper with Alexander Small and with Elvis Duran and then with you on the video and then, anyone else. It's like, I think that you guys are not only doing a great job with me, but like Kimora, her being the first, young Black pilot. And that's a great story that you guys are following. That's, not just going to empower a community, but it's going to empower the young people. Like, get out there and do something really powerful that makes you uncomfortable. She's doing something that is super crazy. And I did fly a plane too, just so y'all know. When I was 19, I took the Black aviation course anyway. But, I saw her story show up multiple times, and I thought that was powerful. The Delta's doing excellent ministry work out in the community. NCNW, you guys are following their stories and, all their calls to action in the community. I see you guys out there, and I understand that you can't be everywhere unless you're Clark Kent. But, if it's manpower that you need, then I would say start looking into internships and bring the young people in and let them be innovative and go out there and do stories and take their stories and put them in the paper, because that's how you get more noise out. That's how you get more information out, is because they're out there, they're doing it. You know what I'm saying? Trust their vantage points. You know what I'm saying? See where they're coming from and then put that stuff in your paper. You know what I'm saying? Don't leave them out. Clear eye visual. You took his photos. When I tell you that I shared those photos with you, Graceland, and I made you a part of my tribe, the reason why I did that was because I needed to know that Aaron was a part of a tribe, and I needed to encourage and empower him to know he's a part of press. And now you have a responsibility to the Staten Island Advance, and that you can be a part of that platform. I just have to say this. Years ago, Derek Alves came to me. I was in college and I was writing, and he was like, "Man, your stories are beautiful. Like, why are you not, having those things published?" And I came to the Advance. I was young. And I wrote letters and I sent pieces in, and I was turned down. No, we don't want it. And that's not no shade. You know what I'm saying? Because you got to have your selective situations. You know what I mean? But what it did was it taught me to sharpen my writing skills. It taught me to get into those groups and start working on what it is that I needed to work on so that I could be better. And I believe that you guys take your work very seriously. And I believe that you do, you make sure that you find some of the right stories for communities. But I believe that right now we need to trust the new processes, and that's the young people. Go out and let these young people get a shot at it, because, just because I didn't get the shot doesn't mean that they can't. You know what I'm saying? And Shane, seeing you, I believe that you have a great energy. Your dialect is different. I think that young people understand you. They can resonate with you. They see you and they don't feel out of place. It's not about color of skin. It's not about where you're from. It's about how you're speaking to people and how you're reaching people. You're not just reaching, old people or seasoned people is what I call them. You're reaching young people. You know what I'm saying? You're reaching a lot of people because people take what you're saying seriously because you take it seriously. Your stance, your posture, your voice, your diction, your smile, your eye contact. These are all parts of communication where everybody is inclusive. They're included in that, and they're seeing it from whichever vantage point. They're seeing it from whatever parts of language that you're speaking to them to. And I think that you need to involve them and encourage them more to be a part of this, because it's bigger than you. It's bigger than it just being about the Staten Island Advance. If you want to create the community that speaks to the world, involve them. Let them come out and let them have conversation. That video you talked about, as a local legend, we reached about 4 million, I think it was, or 6 million people at some point. 6 million people saw that local legends video and saw little old Shaw-nae's house, you know what I'm saying, on that video in Stapleton, saw the Lackawanna Sri Lankan restaurant. And that is powerful. But now, how do we become more innovative, and how do we involve more people to get into the Staten Island Advance so they can start telling the story?
I just want to add to that. The Summer Youth Employment Program would be a great way to implement Shaw-nae's idea and concept, because you could do that over the summer and give those young people an opportunity to have a column or a space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Staten Island Young People's Journal or something.
I want to interject. Shaw-nae, thank you for that wonderful comment. The DEI committee at the Staten Island Advance and SI Live has been in existence 3, maybe 4 years, and we are excited to have completed a program for students at Curtis High School for the past couple of years. And so if you're a follower of SI Live, and if you read it, even in print, we've had their work published. We've had beautiful photographers, wonderful journalists that have come on through our DEI committee. And then currently, it was just featured over the weekend, I believe. We have the immersion program. So not only is it just from Curtis High School, which is my children's alma mater, and just so wonderful, yeah, so many. Everybody who went to Curtis, raise your hand. See, our content director too. But yeah, so we do have some great programs and, great minds. Our committee has been hard at work at doing that. Even as we were just waiting for the panelists to come in, I ran in the hallway with Gail. We have a brand new intern who just came on, who is, we're actively recruiting for fellowships, for internships. So anybody, if you're a talented photographer or a journalist, we even got them at the high school level.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, please reach out to Tips, send us your resumes. We read every single one of them. So that's all I say. Thank you.
Super good.
Thank you, Grace. Yep. Thank you, Shaw-nae. I didn't think I would be blushing during this, but thank you very much for that. David, you could wrap it up for us, man.
Sure. I think one thing, co-sign everything, yeah, but I have to say that I don't think I wouldn't be sitting here if not for the Staten Island Advance right now, right? Because of the Sandy Ground stories was how it came to my attention, but also it sparked a lot of dialogue in the community, which led to action, right? And so I have to say thank you, Tracy and Brian, and to the staff. But I just think more of that, right? There are more Sandy Grounds out there in this community. There are more Shaw-nae's houses out there, and it's not just a one-off, right? So thinking about shedding light on other initiatives, other efforts, other things that would be really amazing. And the other thing I'll say is that I think I feel that there's a responsibility for the media in terms of managing and controlling the discourse. I actually several years ago, stopped reading the comments on SI Live because there's so much hate and so much venom and so many things on there that are not constructive, and they're not going to get us where we need to go. I think shame on Facebook and all these who just think it's up to people to figure it out. I do think that part of the new media, right, the 21st century media, is not only to just put out information, but to also moderate the type of discourse that's happening around the issues.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. I want to open it up to anyone else in this room. Obviously, Graceland, you mentioned before, we've got a few minutes left for some questions. Show of hands, and if you have a question, you could say it out loud, and you could just kind of put the question in the answer that you want to give. So hands we got. Let's see. Someone's got to do it. I'm going to start calling people. So Tracy, go ahead. What do you got?
So all three of you spoke about Sandy Ground. And David, we talked a little bit about how you're going to get that message out there, the education component of it. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about some of your future plans there.
Yeah, I think
Your mic right over there, Dave, if you don't mind. There you go. That's all right.
one of the prepared questions was about how to get more Black history in schools, right? And Sandy Ground has been okay to be included in the elementary school history curriculum. And I don't know if I remember a woman years ago, maybe some of the more senior folks can help me, a woman named Evelyn King, who used to come to PS 18. And I don't know if she was affiliated with Sandy Ground or not, but she came into school, I don't know, once a month or periodically and taught Black history, right? And it was the one little nugget of Black history that we were able to get. And so I see Sandy Ground taking on that kind of a role in the school system, right? Get it early, talking about education, all those wonderful examples of determination and resilience and self-reliance that young people can learn. But I think there's, our school system is set up for this, right? We celebrate Chinese New Year and all of these different ethnic and cultural celebrations. These are all opportunities for us to learn and appreciate each other across our lines of different experiences.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. Question 1, 2, 3. Grayson? Want to call on anyone? Not Brian. There we go. Brian.
I've covered the reporting news and Staten Island for a long time. And it seems to me that in previous decades, we had more leadership within this community, whether it be in the African American community and the community of clergy people, Rotary clubs, and that seems like it has dissipated. And, I talk about volunteerism all the time. And one of the things that want to do through a group that we call now with a nonprofit we created called SI Women Incorporated, which oversees our Women of Achievement program, is to try to get back into the community and increase the volunteer spirit. Do you think, am I right or am I wrong? Is that leadership that maybe was there in the 80s, whether was because Guy Molinari was a crazy man, but he took to the bully pulpit out there, or am I wrong? And the community volunteers is the same way.
I can't speak to it as I am new to the borough, so I would say I can't say what happened previously, but I feel that everything continues to evolve. And I feel that like organizations that you may have been very closely and tightly affiliated may be evolving, and new organizations are creating that are utilizing different channels and different mechanisms of how they meet, how they organize, and what they produce. And so I say, like how you say the bully, you have the bullhorn, and to go out there, now the bullhorn is like on someone's phone. So it feels very different in terms of like what people are doing and how they're showing up. I would say in terms of leadership, another thing that I've seen that's changed things on so many levels, good, bad, or indifferent, are term limits, right? So like on the city council, before you could be in office for 20, 30 years, and that creates like a structure and a way of continuation that just, and people also held jobs for as long as many of those leaders did. Now people might do one term, they might do 2 terms. People don't stay at a job for 15, 20 years anymore. Everything is very, it's more fluid, and things are moving in a very different kind of way. I see like a lot of volunteerism also increasing on the not-for-profit level. A lot of people there's a movement here on the island for people of all races, nationalities to become members of the different museums, and volunteering and board development and recruitment. So I am seeing like that there's a changing face to, even in a very short period of time since I've been here, the political clubs and dynamics are changing and constantly evolving. So I feel like there's an evolution that doesn't seem familiar, but I feel like it also happens in ways that we don't see it and feel it in the same kind of way. I mean, if you look at so much of what's happening is on Zoom now. People aren't sitting around the table and having the board meeting. Or if you think about campaigns, they're not sitting around stuffing the envelopes and getting the stuff out and going out in the street in the same way. It's all just happening, but in a different way.
Our staff is not what it was 25 years ago either.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we don't have the same number of people, so we do need to get more people engaged. However, we have to do that.
Absolutely.
To spread that message. So, I mean, part of this I know is our fault. I get that.
I wouldn't necessarily take blame. We went through a lot over the course of the last, what are we at, 4 years now, the pandemic. You know what I mean? Like we've been through some serious trauma and some serious loss. So like we don't want to ignore that part. Like, you know, like there's loss. So the numbers are down in all reality. You know what I mean? So when we're looking at it like that, it's like trying to regain ourselves and put ourselves back in place and get back out there and doing the work. What I'll say is the Rotary Club is fun. I went to several of their meetings, and they're out there doing the work. They come into the restaurant and sit down and you know, every district tries to recruit me. You know what I mean? But I see that they're still thriving and pushing and doing, and they're doing it after the fact. You know what I'm saying? After they've lost people, after, you know, there's less, you know, momentum, after there's less resource and money, after there's less of these things, they're still trying to build it back. So like, I'm not blaming you for the losses. I'm not blaming you for not having the numbers. We just have to get into a place where everybody's comfortable and everybody can move forward and everybody can understand what their responsibility or role is in it, so that we can build new leaders. We can build a new form of leadership. We can build on, you know, the different ideas of how to be leaders, you know what I'm saying, in this new world, you know, because it is a new world and Zoom is a real thing now, you know. Blazers and pajama pants is a thing. So like, if that's how we're going to do leadership, then let's figure out how to include that group of people, but still treat them as leaders and still involve our community and still allow people to figure things out for themselves and as a group, you know what I'm saying? So that we're all comfortable, because that's something that we have to do. But I think that we definitely see the leadership happening fabulous leaders are walking around speaking and doing wonderful things in the community, and they're speaking on behalf of an entire community. So now we got to figure out who else can we appoint? Who else is out there that's very serious about doing it? Take ownership.
Thank you so much, Shaw-nae. We're just about at that time, Graceland. So I'm a big thank you person. So let me go around the room real quick. First off to the leadership, obviously. Brian, Gail, Caroline, thanks for having us all here today. Round of applause, everyone. We get a little bit of that going on. Big shout out to Graceland, who helped set this entire thing up. Amazing job. Jason Paderon, who set up the entire room here today. I didn't lift a finger. I didn't do anything. Trust me. You guys know me. I didn't do anything. And last but certainly not least, the three people that are sitting here right now. Not only is it just great to have, an event like this, plus no one's working right now. We get to sit here and listen. This is just fantastic. But really just the information, the knowledge, and just so many tidbits that we got that's really going to help us do our job better. It's going to help everyone in this room write better stories, do better videos, be more engaged with the community. That last question that I wanted to ask was important to me because that's stuff that means a lot to me. So thank you to the three of you. We could end the video with a loud round of applause for community giants, the conversations we had here today. Shane DeMail for the Staten Island Advance. Make sure you share this video and look at our YouTube video coming out soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.